Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Inside Line, a podcast produced by the Snow Sports Industries of America. I'm Kristin Carpenter, the CEO and founder of Verity Brand Communications, the proud agency of record for SIA for many years. And I'm here with a person who is showing us it is possible to turn a love of skiing into a real job as long as you're willing to sit through 1 million meetings a year. Nick Sargent.
1 million meetings. That's me.
And I don't know how this happened, but it's March all of a sudden. And we're about to close the first season of this podcast. And we have a fantastic guest today. Nick, will you please do the honors?
Love to. And we've been, you just spilled the beans. We've had some amazing and fantastic guests on the first season of Inside Line. So anyway, it's been a lot of fun. And, and we've had a lot of viewers, which has been phenomenal. And so today we're really excited and we have a special guest, Pete LaBore, the CEO of Christy Sports. So we've been able to talk to manufacturers. We've been able to talk to industry influencers. But now, we're really changing the pace of this conversation and we're taking it right to the retailer. And we're really excited to have Pete. And I'm really excited to hear how the winter's been for him, knowing that, in the West, there's been very little snow. The East, there's been quite a bit of snow. And it appears the Pacific Northwest is going to get pounded this week. But with that being said, Pete, maybe just give us a little bit of an update on how you and Christy's are faring this odd winter.
Well, Nick, thanks, and Kristin, thanks for both having me on the show. Happy to be here and be part of it. It's been, as you said, it's been an interesting winter, certainly in the West. The East Coast, I think, has been all high fives. The Rockies have been a little tougher. So it's been a sluggish season, I would say, with this lack of snowfall throughout the West. I think Colorado and Utah, where the majority of our stores reside, I think are on track for worst winter ever. That being said, I think it's been tough. Our business is certainly down year over year, double digits. But as we communicate to our employees, try to also say enjoy the groomers this year. So we've been certainly in a bit of a powder chasing environment, but every time I think I have a bit of a tough day kind of looking at the sales numbers, it's certainly going to our stores. Our stores and our teams, I think, have managed to kind of remain positive. We know we can influence our guests that are coming from the Texas and the Floridas, even the New Yorks or Californias of the world, and they still don't have easy access to mountains. So we are keeping it positive despite a not so positive snow year. So down double digits is where we are from a sales perspective, but I'd say energy and enthusiasm for winter still remains high throughout Christy Sports.
I'm just grateful that you didn't take the helm a couple months ago and that you have a couple years under your belt and an incredible background. So just for the sake of everybody listening, there are some who may not know you, you have a very, very diverse and interesting background. International man of mystery of retail, I would say. U.S. Auto Parts, DoubleClick, a decade with Backcountry.com, a quite formative one at that. Caddis Eye Appliances, Vori, and now you're at CEO of Christy Sports, a 65-year-old mountain retailer with a brick and mortar background. So we're really excited to hear today how you've steered Christie's to be the tail wagging the dog in terms of retail playing a proactive role in shaping the future of winter sports. And I think your positive attitude and everything you've probably set the table with your stores and your team is the lead. Would you agree, Nick?
No, absolutely. I mean, this industry is full of diverse leaders, and that's what makes it exciting. And certainly, Pete, doing the research on your background, Claude had, 7 pages on you, which is, so if you plug in your name and into Claude, get ready to read. But, you've had an amazing career specifically, around digital COO background. You have amazing retail prowess. How has that helped you with the transition into Christy? Christie's was really hurting when you took over, and then certainly COVID didn't help anyone. But coming out of COVID, how has that background really helped you navigate all the challenges that are affecting specialty retail?
Yeah, maybe a couple of things. I mean, I've kind of maybe gone the opposite path. A lot of folks. I probably started with more digital first and digitally native with Backcountry for 10 years and saw that from 200 million to a little less than a billion. So kind of rapid growth and evolution. Left the outdoor space for a bit with a couple of brands and kind of women's fashion space, and kind of came back, I'd say, to the outdoor industry because I think I missed a little bit of I think the well-intentioned people of the outdoor industry. There's just a lot of we, I would say, in the outdoor industry, and kind of a shared camaraderie that I ultimately missed. But we also know the outdoor industry is not easy. It's very seasonal in terms of what we're seeing this year. Weather can be up and down, as well as the margins have been gotten tougher and tougher since COVID. So I think some time, I think, with backcountry and rapid growth, but you see up winners, you see down winners. You see seasonality, but I think you ultimately kind of go back to why do we all do it? We really do it, I think, for the people. That one bad year certainly is one bad year. We've had Utah, for an example, has gone from its best winter ever 3-4 years ago to now its worst winter ever, and so you're seeing a little bit more variability. So I think when I stepped into Christie's, Christie's I think was coming off, as a lot of folks in the outdoor industry were, the tailwinds of COVID, but it had a little bit of some speed bumps in terms of kind of had some over inventory and kind of had some overstaff, particularly in our stores and labor hours. Just kind of had to get back to basics. So it's kind of, again, why do we uniquely exist? How do we play in the outdoor industry? How do we communicate? But I think what I appreciated as the direct to consumer online industry had become more challenging, Christy Sports had that foundation of physical retail, kind of in the rental business. That I think where a lot of the backcountries and the direct-to-consumer business has been challenged with rising customer acquisition costs. We kind of had a solve for that. Rental is a reason that people can drive traffic to stores, as well as I think the physical stores in some ways are better. We have great locations and geographies, so I think had some differentiators that made life in some ways a little easier than the online kind of world that I've really grown up in. That being said, we know consumers are omni-channel. A lot, 85% of our customers start their journey online with a rental reservation and then end up in our physical stores. So I think that was an opportunity for me to kind of build the physical component of my experience as well. But I really chose it because I believe people want to go to the mountains. People are going to go to the mountains, good weather or not. This winter, unfortunately, a few less people want to go to the mountains. But I think that my background and kind of seeing the variability, seeing the seasonality, but know it kind of really comes down to how do you kind of find why do you uniquely exist in this world, and then the team of people that you get to do it with is really what makes, I think, both the up years and the down years able to kind of to see them through. And Christy has that in droves. I like to say we have care dripping from our walls, and so just how do we shepherd that really in the right ways to serve our guests. But I would say with the up and down in the ski industry and COVID, to your point, I think we need businesses like Christie's, and we need that specialty service. More than ever. Doesn't mean it's easy, but I would say consumers need it more than ever. And so happy to be part of that.
I really think, that the interesting part of that really is just your instinctiveness on bridging operational excellence with customer experience and how that really comes together. And, we talk about the consumer journey, we talk about the customer, we talk about, specialty as the front line of this industry, which certainly it is. But man, through your experience, bridging that gap and, between running a business and then consumer is so important. Maybe you can tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in my kind of career and journey. I would like to say with some linear, pre-programmed or predestined path. It was a bit of a random walk at times and a lot of luck. When I joined Backcountry, I started in the marketing space, and then kind of through various challenges that came up, kind of took over some e-commerce for platforming and took over some of the merchandising aspects. And as I mentioned earlier, the outdoor space is a combination of a lot of passion and some difficult, I think, businesses. So you have to find ways to sweat the small stuff, the small stuff, both in the consumer experience and sweat the small stuff and, eking out, nickels and dimes, certainly in your shipping costs or your margin or other pieces to really make the business work. So I think because of the nature of the industry, we all want to be here, but that means you got to find ways to do the little stuff well. I like to, a lot of saying I've used over and over again is mission and margin. Without no mission, you don't have people that want to chase the margin, but without the margin, you can't fund the mission. So
Right.
you kind of have, so you kind of find the balance of both, I would say. So that's kind of been, to your point, Nick, kind of mantra. Find that balance between mission and margin. I'm probably, a little more biased towards the operational excellence part, but without the mission, that's why I'm here.
Sure.
So I also try to balance myself with people that are on that mission and that consumer journey side. But Christy's a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
We have to have a very smooth rental experience and then really take that into squeezing out some nickels and dimes to make the business work.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really interesting to hear that you've looked at rentals as like a point of entry, and I bet you have something to share with our audience around how you've made that an experience from discovery and reservation into the points of entry that are essentially like gateways to the mountains. So I'm curious to know like how you've set your team up to welcome that, rental person or rental family that's coming in. What are some of the challenges that they might say to your staff, even as they're forming up the rental or considering their vacation in terms of like barriers to entry?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Kristin. And for Christie's, I think the rental business is everything. We're a retailer, but I think we're kind of a renter, and then retail is kind of gravy on top of that. So the rental journey is where most of our customers start, particularly in the winter. Typically, when a customer starts their journey with figuring out which pass do I want to buy or what kind of resort am I going to go to, and then I may book my passes, and then I may book my flight, and I may book my lodging. The last thing they do anywhere from 7 to 15 days before a trip is book their rentals. And often you will go on to typically it was kind of a search engine or Google in the past and do something like, rentals in Breckenridge or best rental shop in Vail and find those. More and more now these days it's becoming Chat GPT. And they may say, as opposed to give me my best rentals, like tell me all the things I need to do to take a ski trip in Vail and who should I rent from and give those answers. So I think we are trying to make sure we are present, certainly in those places where the consumer touches us. We know once they can have an experience for us, we can give them great service and then a good chance to bring them back. But then when customers are in the store, if you've been in a shop, in any ski shop these days, we do a lot of our business in 16 days, Christmas to New Year's, President's, MLK, spring break. So we have about 16 days that are really large. Mm-hmm. You can walk into a rental shop at 9 in the morning on the day after Christmas, and there can be 50 people in there. So our customers care about convenience to their location. They care about speed. How can I get my gear and get out? They care about the quality of that gear, and they care about the service to make sure they've kind of got the right fit. And any one of those that goes sideways can send their trip, kind of down a bad hill, so to speak. So we need to make sure that we can, one, be present when they're looking, and Christie's can demonstrate that we have great service, we've got great equipment. And then once we get them in the shop, we want to find the ways to get them in the right gear, but get them in and out of the shop. Both with their rentals and anything else they need, gloves, hand warmers, et cetera, as kind of quickly as possible, because we are a means to an end. They're there to ski. They're not there to hang out in the ski shop to kind of get their gear for long periods of time. So speed, I think, and convenience, as well as that service, are things that we spend a lot of time talking about and making sure that our, in our marketing team in particular, we've got customer service, but that connects closely with our in-store team and our labor and our hours. So that's only reinforced to me at Christie just how everything is cross-functional. We may have a marketing function, a merchandising function, a rental function, a stores function, but unless they all work together, the consumer experience can fall apart.
Yeah,
I have to elevate that to just challenge you on a question, because you came in and set a really beautiful mission and vision. It's everywhere you look, it's super consistent. All of those things are so operations focused and trusted, and do really create the trust for the consumer who might already be interested in booking. But like, how are you actually aspirationally putting the opportunity out for more families to get outdoors?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say, Kristin, we'd like to do more of that. We probably have been a bit more kind of operational and kind of boots down the last couple of years with the challenges of the business. But I think a few things we've tried to do in the last couple of years, we know from some of the SIA studies in particular that some of the participation, some of our categories has slowed since COVID. And we know that if we need to get some of those kind of customers, we need to increase that size of that pool. So we have done things like introduce $90 kind of kids rent free package how do we get the kids out? If we get younger generations going into our stores to make it more convenient for families to get their kids on the mountain, more cheaply. We also have done some things with, for example, Youth Sports Alliance in Utah, and kind of partner with them to donate some of our kind of rental packages, and that they work with folks in the community to kind of get kids out on the mountain and the slopes that wouldn't typically have access or easy to. We also partner with a few other folks, like She Jumps, for example, to try and, again, encourage other people out to come out. So anything that we do, I'd say, from a philanthropy or donations, which isn't large, is around focusing on how do we get more participants into our industry. As Nick knows, I certainly talked a bunch, would love to find ways. I've been in a couple of panels. I said it only works if the retailers, the resorts, and the brands can really work together. So I would love to see how can we form some more partnerships with the resorts to really kind of help them encourage it as well. I know they are also focused on it, but I think there are opportunities for the combination of all three to come together. And if we don't kind of get more participants in our industry, which is becoming more and more expensive, and in some cases more difficult to access, I think we're all going to suffer in the mid to the long run. So I think participation for us is at front and center all the time. But I'd say we have, it's more time, I would say, a little bit of dollars, and a little bit of where we put some of our kind of philanthropy energy that really focuses on younger generations to get out.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome to hear. I mean, it is the conversation that is so frequent, not only in this building and on my phone, talking to everyone in the industry, and certainly when lift tickets are $300 plus a day, this industry gets a bad rap of how expensive it is. My quick analogy is, you don't go to Pebble Beach for your first round of golf. You go to your local 9-hole and enjoy an $18 to $28 round. But it's easy to poke the Vales and Beaver Creeks in the eye, or even the Park City. But again, as I mentioned earlier, specialty retail is the front line of this industry, and the experience starts with you all. And I really want to commend you for what Christy's has done and your participation with all of those other groups that are helping people get on snow. And that is, that's an issue and an opportunity. And I bring that up to anyone that ever asks. But, being able to wave that wand and say, we're open for business. We want to have a ton of people come and try out the sport. We want the next generation to enjoy it. There are affordable ways to get into the sport. There are affordable resorts and ski hills that you can go to. I think the first part of that is rental and trying the sport out, trying the game, and deciding, where you sit. So, Pete, if you had a magic wand and you could just wave that one swipe left, right to, adjust the structural change in this industry, where do you think that might be from a pricing perspective, a package perspective, a consumer perspective? What would be your first?
Yeah. Go ahead. To your point, I think a variety of things that we poked at there. When I talk to folks like YSA, or I've talked to some other folks that are seeing success kind of in Utah, access to the Olympic, the UOP, which they try to access, kind of get folks out as well. The big challenges they see are typically two things. It's one, I think transportation, obviously, and then I think the ski pass are the two big access. Yeah. Rentals in some way, while more limited access, are more accessible. I mean, I have 50% of my rental fleet is, other than those 16 peak days, are probably gathering dust on most days. But how do you kind of get folks, from their schools or from their homes? Often I think there's more volume available or capacity available during the week. So you have to transport folks and kind of kids during the week. And then two, how do they kind of get ski pass access? And then we are welcome to support, I think with rentals as much as we possibly can. The third thing I think I've also heard is obviously some, snacks and food obviously becomes a big part. So I think first I would just love to see, I think that if there is ski pass access, I think there is a willingness to solve the transportation. You can find access to, I think, the food and snacks, and we can certainly help with, I would say, on the rental front. So I think we have to find a way to kind of get that, get one, access to the mountains, and then transport them are the two big things I think we need to solve with. I think, as you both know, when people try and they're sliding on snow in some form, it tends to stick, no pun intended. And you definitely find people. So I believe the more people we can kind of have that thrill of a few times out in the mountain, I think they will find ways then to try their local mountain and get access to that. Utah is a great example with its fourth, fifth, sixth kind of ski pass, grade ski pass, where you basically can, for $70, I think get 3 uses. But then I think they're working on ways to solve the transportation, and we're trying to find ways to support on rentals. So access, I think, no surprise, Nick, I'm going to state the obvious answer, but it's access to the resorts.
It's true. I mean, that is the gateway, and providing access is a huge step in the journey for sure.
I'm just curious to know, you have one thing as I was researching your business, you have a lot of longstanding employees. So it must have been very useful for you when you first came into the chair to kind of hear what it's like on the front lines, especially during such a disruptive time. And I realize that we're catching you at a time, like we're at the tail end of a really challenging season. A lot of different challenges even preceding this one in your business, in everyone's business, kind of leading into a challenging season. Have you been able to empower like the people working on your shop floors to kind of just do anything they can to kind of resurrect what might be kind of a glum experience? I'm curious to know that, because obviously you employ passionate outdoor enthusiasts. They might be not feeling so great about things, but is there anything that you do culturally that might keep them kind of upbeat and trying to invite more people in and welcome them into, the outdoors?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kristin. I think when I first started, I think we kind of reinstituted some town halls, and as part of town halls, going to do employee anniversaries on that month. And I think we were doing a little bit of a catch-up month, so we had kind of 2 months of town. And I think I had 3 slides of people's names, 2 columns filled top to bottom that had been with the company 20 plus years. And I spent my kind of first 6 months trying to get in all of our stores and just talking to employees, and that same thing, just realized, like, again, not that I knew that, but you see it and feel it, like the employees and the stores are the lifeblood of what like Christy Sports work. The people that have been doing it for 20 years or fitting boots for 30 years, that is, I think, the specialty that we all want in any specialty retail. And Christy Sport, as I said, has that in droves. So I think, and you see that in employees kind of going above and beyond, I think, to take care of a customer, somebody that maybe was knocking on the door at 8:15 after an 8 o'clock close, and we let them in to kind of give them the rental. Somebody that kind of had a mishap, and maybe the manager of the store puts their rental gear in their car and drives them to their hotel. So that above and beyond attitude, I think, is just what makes Christy work and makes any specialty retailer work. And we, I think, have as one of our values, I think we want to be kind of welcoming. Welcoming is one of our key words. So you can walk into sometimes a ski shop or a snowboard shop and feel like the gear can be intimidating. We don't care if you're skiing your first day or you skied your 1000th day, how much you know, how little you know. We want to be unassuming. We want you to kind of walk in and kind of, how can we help you? What are the things we do? So I think we try to make sure that we train our employees to be that kind of unassuming and very welcoming, to really invite everybody where they are. And then how do we kind of help their guest experience? But we find, people can come in guarded when they're early, because again, it can be intimidating. And we hopefully with a couple of casual questions, get to know you, and some smiles, that guard comes down, and they're more interesting, I think, or kind of inviting to share some of where they are. I think we saw very similar at Backcountry with some of our Gearhead program, and we would kind of call customers the first time and, why are you calling me? Why is this? Oh, you're actually human. Oh, okay. Oh, you actually know some things about the things that I'm interested in. Or, I think it comes down, do you actually care, to your point? And that kind of builds some trust. And then I think we can solve the customers where they are. So very important to us that welcome our guests, certainly with a smile. In this tough year, I think, to your point, it's a lot of our employees also fuel their fire by getting out in the mountain and sliding on snow. And it's been a little tougher for them to have that same enthusiasm. But again, every time I go into a store, they still know they've seen up, down. The beauty of tenure is they've seen low snow years, they've seen good snow years, and they know another season will come. So I think generally I would say that tenure has helped us, and that employees are like, we've seen this before. It's a bummer, but this too shall pass. And end of the day, they can influence a customer's experience by a smile on their face. So I sometimes am probably more the challenge in the office. If I need an uptick, I'll go into the store, and our employees remind me of kind of, this is what they do, and they know better than me even. So of how much they can have an impact on that experience and a customer walking in the door.
Yeah, I mean that the company culture is so important, and Christie's has a long-standing company culture, and I'm sure you and your experience has really helped elevate that. And we do talk about the next generation of participants, and you hit on it quickly. That frontline retail employee can really set the tone with a smile on their face and open arm, asking some questions and really helping them welcome these individuals into the space, and then into the sport. We don't see a lot of that in current marketing. We always see the product, we always see whatever. But is there a way to kind of capsule that raw emotion and use that to market to a new participant or the next generation, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think there can. I think, and something we can do better on. But I think certainly as more and more consumers, certainly in social media, if you see a small mom and pop ski shop, you see the employee faces, you see the tenure, you see them talking about product and camaraderie. I wish I could. I say sometimes I wish I had the coffee table book of Christy Sports. I could talk about each one of our stores in our regions that we could actually sell. So I haven't found perfectly a way to bottle it up. I would also argue, social media isn't quite the way to bottle it up, but I think we are trying to do more. How do I share the story of the 30-year boot fitter in Vail, and kind of how they got started, what they do, and kind of what they love about that. I think when you walk into a Christy Sports and you talk to some of those people, you can feel it, but it is very hard in marketing to bottle it up. Social media is probably the next best step, but even that. So I think we are still working on what is the ways to help you do that. But it is it's not also one touch point. It's our customer reviews, it's our feedback, it's our social media, it's the in-store experience, it's the online rental journey, it's the in-store rental journey. So that hopefully the sum of all those small parts, retail is details, add up to that kind of reason to come back. But I wish I could put it in a bottle, Nick, and find ways to dump it into a Google search ad or a Facebook post.
I can help you a little bit. And I think you're already doing a pretty great job. And it's basically, if you consider your inbox, your feed, everything today you're being sold to. And I think if you had that environment when you were at backcountry.com, it would have made your job incredibly difficult, gearheads or not. I think people are actually starting to disengage, and you slid into this role at such a crux time. If you think about it, it's kind of the last channel you haven't really piloted, Yeah. And that's why we're fascinated and wanted to have you on. But that human to human touch point, and I know people are like, oh, that's so obvious if they're listening. But if you actually have retail stores with a trusted name that have been in the community for as long as yours have, that to me feels like the biggest opportunity of all. And when you think about the triangulation of brand, resort, and retail, you're actually the accessible point of entry. So that actually gives you a lot of power to wield, we're hoping. So I just want to, invite you to kind of pop up and look out for a second. You actually are sitting in the catbird seat, I think, in terms of increasing that participation. And I feel like the stewards that are within your stores are the ones that are going to be able to experience that firsthand. I guess the question I have is how do you continue to grow that flywheel? People are coming in such different ways, and they might see a price on a website and bounce right out. And then they might find something with your organization, with your storefront, et cetera, that would bring them back in. It's like they're kind of going around and around, and they're popping in and out. And it feels to me like what you have is the stickiest channel. That must be interesting for you coming from where you did.
It is. And Kristin, your point is part of the reason why I chose it. One, because I knew channel. Two, to your point, I believe that at the end of the day, still 70-80% of our transactions still occur in physical retail. And why you do it, particularly I think in the outdoor specialty, is often because of that human connection piece and that human service. We sit at the precipice of that. We're not the largest, like some of that have 200 stores, but there's only, call it, one of those at the end of the day in this kind of ski specialty. And then there is kind of individual mom and pops at 1 and 2, and we're sitting at 55. So in that scaled specialty, if you will. But it happened. I ultimately chose, I think, this role because believed in specialty is more important than ever, and customers do want it. sometimes though, as consumers, it gets hard to choose it, right? To your point, you can find a price online and go. So how do we fuel it? I think we keep trying to fuel our employees, keep trying to train them, keep trying to educate them, treat time to ensure that the reason they chose to be in this industry, work in a ski shop, but also have the chance to walk out the door and ski on a powder day. We make sure we fuel that. And we try to pay, market or market plus, but we're not probably overpaying, I think, certainly on wages, but we can offer you a chance to live in the mountains, which is not becoming easier or cheaper, but a chance to kind of get out and ski and do that with a team of people that they really enjoy. So I think we certainly find that time and time again that the people that are working in the stores, they're working it for the people around them on their left and their right. That's their family, that's their team. Kind of in very similar ways. If you read kind of books about going to war, people are doing that because of the people on the left and the right of them. So we try to reinforce that. I think you asked a question earlier about what are we doing to kind of empower those people, kind of in the stores. I think we are trying to make sure that they have the decision capability and capacity to make decisions to serve customers. We're trying to find some marketing budget as well, so they can do some in-community marketing budget to connect with their local community events. That may be hosting an art event in the store, that may be hosting a local group, that may be just kind of participating in a fundraiser, certainly donating product. But we want those people to feel part of the community, and those stores to feel part of the community. But I think where are we finding the next generation of 30-year boot fitters? I think we're finding our way there. I think I am nervous in the next kind of 5 to 10 years. A lot of that kind of generation is kind of going to looking to retire, and we are building that. We are trying to maintain a pipeline of how do we kind of train and grow those employees, but you don't build that skill overnight. It takes time. And particularly in our mountain doors, it's becoming more of a challenge because of it's becoming more difficult to live there. But I think my experience has been passion finds a way, and people have a passion for skiing. They will find a way to work that job, even though it may not be the kind of challenging to live it, but they love to ski. And that kind of comes back to it time and time again. So if I had one metric, it would be make sure our people get that time outside, because without it, nothing else really matters.
So you're definitely seeing and feeling, from what I'm sensing from just those remarks, that getting new employees into retail and into stores is a huge challenge for the future.
It is. I mean, we go from 400 employees kind of in our summer to 1,400 employees. So 1,000 employees we had seasonally. About 50% of those are returning seasonal employees. But I think building that, I think there used to be a more clear path to working in a ski shop could be a career. Mm-hmm. And I think with cost of living, that's becoming more challenging.
Do you think the stoke is waning, or it's just those other outside variables that are making these potential employees think twice about what career path they want to go through or go down?
I think stoke is always there. I think it's the cost that's really kind of making it challenging. Can I find housing? At a certain point, if you are certainly 30 or 35, it's very difficult to live with 3-4 roommates in a house and start a family. So the ability to kind of buy in, or the challenge to have to drive 30-40 minutes to work, certainly in a snowstorm, if that's what it takes, it becomes logistically a challenge. So we have done, we've looked at employee housing, we've owned employee housing, where all the things we were trying to do, but we certainly, it's becoming a challenge, I think, for just folks to do that, which is, I would say, we're not giving up by any means, because to your point, the stoke is always going to be high. Yeah. But I think we have to be a lot more creative. We've had to in the past to make it work.
Nick, I just thought of something that I wanted to bring up before we close the show today. You told me, I think a couple of seasons ago, and you've said it a number of times, that the big retailers the big resorts are kind of the primary retail door today. And if you think about like the backdrop of the passes, how do you get there from a transportation standpoint, and just feeling like you belong in that? Like, as a consumer, can I see myself in a retail storefront at a resort versus Christy Sports? I mean, I feel like we might be actually seeing a little bit of a renaissance with that local retailer, especially the way you're thinking about it. And I would love to hear your take, Nick, just in terms of how we always talk about the little ski hills. I mean, that the little retailers, and yes, you're not a tiny independent 2-store, but like you still have a great feel about you that feels super accessible and independently owned at Christie's. It's just like who you guys are. So I'm curious to know, like, Nick, what do you think potentially, if you want to look in your magic 8 ball? Do you think there might be a swing back to the the local independents from resort, knowing the numbers have been going through resorts in previous seasons?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this a number of times, and thanks for reminding me and bringing this up. But the consumer likes physical interaction. The consumer likes the passion, the stoke that we've been talking about, and that's what specialty brings to the table. Not to say it's lost with a big resort retailer, but it kind of is lost in some ways. And you feel like you're a part of the cog as a part of what it is at specialty, which is comfortable, exciting,
Exactly.
Personable. And that's where the consumer wants to be met. And that's, if we're really being honest, that's when the consumer opens their wallet, when they feel comfortable and they feel the trust, they feel like they're being looked after. And those are, in my opinion, and purely my opinion, that's really where this industry has always been. And that's where people want to be met. And that's where specialty offers such a unique opportunity for any and all customers when they come in that door. You don't have to go by the food court or go by the ski school to find the retail. You go right in the front door, you're greeted and you're helped out, which, again, that's the way I like to be treated. I would imagine that's the way you both like to be treated. I even like that experience at the grocery store. Someone's helping me find the fresh avocados, but absolutely. So I think specialty is the cornerstone, the crutch of this industry. And I don't see specialty ever going away. I think they will only strengthen themselves.
And I just have to say, as we wind up here, Pete, we both were kind of, jostling around as we were researching who gets to, bring up the incredible quote that I think you said when you started your role, which is like bringing a back end of something like Amazon to a mom and pop ski shop. And I think as you're looking back now and forward at the same time at kind of a close of a season and the start of another, I wonder how you might see that. I mean, one of the things I'm thinking you might be looking at as a huge opportunity is being able to understand how people are discovering and actually joining and enrolling, if you will, with this sport. So you're able to kind of understand that on the back end and then bring it to life through your doors. Is that something that you saw as you came into this, or was that sort of like a pie in the sky vision that now you're kind of realizing, like, what does this really look like as I'm operating this business?
Yeah, I think to kind of connect to your past question as well. I mean, I've kind of said, Christy Sports has to be mom and pop in the front and scale in the back. And so I think we talk about mission. I mean, mission is all that mom and pop service in the front, and then Amazon is all the scale in the back, stuff you don't want to notice, but certainly supports it. Now they're not quite that back, but if we lose kind of that mom and pop, just general energy, and people don't want to be there, you kind of lose everything. The back end, we just have to make things more efficient, kind of to work both to drive our margin, but also just to make it so we have more time to do the stuff in the front. And kind of serve those customers. So I think that's where I think Christy does. We are kind of a single one or two stores. We should have some more capacity to drive some things like systems and kind of ERP efficiency and inventory replenishment. We're nowhere near Amazon, but at the same time, if you become, I think, Amazon more a transaction engine, you lose that front. So it goes back to that mission and margin piece. So absolutely yes, but I think I definitely, while I appreciated, I think, the mom and pop and specialty service that we had, you only can really experience it when you go into the stores, you talk to those employees, and you see what's there. And I think as a CEO, I think you only get more respect. Like, I got to make sure I feel that. If I don't feel that and care for those folks that want to be in those doors and want to do it with a smile on the face, we don't really have anything. So you can do all the stuff in the back of the house and all the Amazon stuff. But it has to be done in a way that supports, I think, that specialty service in the front. So I have a lot of care for that. There's very few folks like Christie's that have that scaled specialty. So I look at it both as a challenge and an opportunity at times. Like, we have to find a way to carry that flag to some degree. But if we lose that mom and pop, we lose employees want to be there. Like it's all for naught. So that's our everything.
You've brought your lens of consumer experience really strongly into this role, and I commend you. Nick, do you have anything you want to ask before we wrap up today?
No, I mean, it's just really, it's always interesting to talk with Pete and get your perspective. And hear how you're operating your business. I think it's really important to continue this conversation, and it doesn't stop here. We'll continue to have these conversations in the future. So, personally, thank you, Pete, for taking the time. Thanks for jumping in on the podcast, and really appreciate all of your experience and guidance.
Well, thank you, Nick. Thank you, Kristin, as well. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, all.